Today I'm here with Sheri Sobrato, the founder of Digging Deep Project, co-author of Digging Deep, a journal for young people facing health challenges, and creator of Shadow's Edge, a mobile game for teens with medical and psychological challenges. So you wrote a book, and then you created a game to solve a problem. What was and is the problem?
So it's really getting the information to kids. I think, unfortunately, kids who are dealing with whatever their challenge is, whether it be a health challenge like the book was focused on, or the game, which is more broadly focused on anything that a kid is dealing with that they have to both get through and get beyond. And there wasn't much information to support those young people to move from a place of confusion or potentially sadness, anxiety, depression, or anger to a place of feeling balanced and hopeful and understanding the blessings in their storm. So we created the game to reach more kids. We, sending a very heavy book to children's hospitals only address that market. And even that, there was a middleman. The administrators at the hospital, the psychology staff, the social workers and child life specialists had to decide what kid is going to get this book and what isn't. And so with my colleague, Rosie Lockhorst, we wanted to come up with a digital solution that the young people themselves could find and embrace. And we know that teens game, and it was her idea that we'd come up with this game. And it was fascinating to me to take what had been a very beautiful book, but a relatively lifeless book to become this interactive tool to more or less do the same thing.
Okay, so let's go back a few years, many years. You spent many years looking at how you personally could grow from trauma. So can you tell us a little bit of that story?
So in my early 20s, I had a situation happen in my life that totally wiped out everything that I knew to be true about myself, about my world. I was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor and given a very short prognosis, which I'm fortunate enough to say today was 33 years ago. So how I had to get through that was, first to sort of cope with whatever I had done in my life to cope, which was powering through it, which was doing everything I could possibly do. That I would have influence over my getting well, whether it was attitude or eating or exercise or whatever it was. But then there was a point which I couldn't do anymore. Like it just wasn't working. And I had to come up with a whole new set of coping strategies and who I was. And it was that whole process of moving through a challenge when I had gotten to this point of really being disillusioned and having to dig myself out. And it was through that process and then going on to counsel other both brain tumor patients, cancer patients, and healthcare patients that I realized the process, no matter what gets kids to this place where they have their sort of wipeout experience, they need those skills to move through and beyond their challenge.
So you say that you didn't really process your feelings when you were going through your own trauma. And how did that manifest itself over the years?
So it worked great in the beginning because I think denial served me well. I had to just power. And I think that young people sometimes, a couple of reasons. One is they don't want to show weakness. And I think I had that side of myself that I'm like, okay, I'm strong, I can beat it. And it wasn't until I had another medical situation in my life 5 years later that all those feelings that I had stuffed basically came boiling to the surface. And it came out as anger at first, but really what was underneath everything was a layer of sadness, a layer of loss, a layer of losing that sort of carefree early 20s excitement, new career and boyfriends and all this stuff. All that was taken away from me. And I was zapped back into my parents' home. And I had to go through a process where I had to recognize that there was parts of myself that I had to say goodbye to. But that was okay because there was parts of myself that were becoming. But I think without feeling that sort of sadness and confusion of like, okay, this is who I was and I'm not exactly that, but who am I going to become? That I recognized in myself that there's a length of time. I mean, it's not like jump from here to there. You just make a decision. I mean, there's a whole process. And I wanted to support young people through that process because there wasn't a lot out there. Certainly, if everyone had a chance to go to a therapist for a year or two when they have a difficult situation in life, that might be the ideal, but they're expensive, inconvenient. How do you get there, especially if you're a young person whose parents can't afford it, can't get you there, or don't believe in therapy? And I wanted to create something that would be a self-help tool where the kids could find that strength from within themselves and build from there.
So you've spoken about 7 factors of resilience. What are those 7 factors?
So it's things like positive self-identity, which, normal people speak, is self-esteem. And a lot of questions, our game is filled with journal writing questions and prompts, as well as doing art. A lot of moving through a situation is understanding from where your strength comes from. So things like positive self-identity. Optimism is another one. If people can understand the meaning behind their experience, which is not defined by other people, they get to define it. They define themselves and they get to define their experience. That's another resilience factor is derived meaning. If they can get to a place of optimism or seeing how the struggle actually has improved their life, that's another way that can build a resilience. A social connection would be another resilience factor. And for example, in Shadow's Edge, there's a point in which a game where they share their graffiti that they make in the game with other young people, and they can see that other kids, regardless of what their struggle is, might be dealing with the very same feelings that they are. So another resilience factor is mindfulness, both in the sense of, what we call Zen and, thinking and watching your breathing and all that could be mindfulness, but it could also be being emotionally aware, which is another resilience factor, being able to know what you're feeling. A lot of these teens feel overwhelmed, but they can't define at first, they can't define what feelings create that overwhelm and where do they come from. And once you start to identify and label feelings and understand the source of those feelings, it's the first step of being able to regulate them, which gives a young person confidence if they feel like they're controlling their emotions, not that their emotions are controlling them. So all these factors work together to help build that resilience in young people. I mean, some people used to think that resilience is something, either we're resilient or we're not, something that we're born with. And in fact, the psychology literature on which our game is based is very much in disagreement in that, and that you can build those factors, and that's what our game has set out to do.
So part of the goal is to give back power to the kids, right?
Absolutely, it's empowerment.
And how does playing the game actually result in that?
So you wouldn't, I think that mobile games get a bad rap sometimes because kids are on them, all day long. But in fact, if it's used as a tool to deliver content that they would otherwise not get, like we don't always understand ourselves, and nor do we understand how maybe our support team can work to support us, or how we express our feelings, and what good does that do? I mean, all these things are learned skills. And by playing a game that has content in it that, say, would be in a self-help book, but kids aren't reading these self-help books, gives them bit by bit nuggets of techniques and ideas that they can learn in the game, but they can employ in the real life too. So something that they learn in the game and practice in the game, it could be self-expression, it could be just a tip about dealing with stress or anxiety. Our ideal would be they learn the skills in the game, they practice them, and then they take them out in the real life and can cope better.
That's great. So we know that kids need other kids who are going through similar things. Is there a sense of community at Shadow's Edge?
Yeah, thanks for asking. But we have 2 kinds of community. The first one is what's inside the game. So if you can imagine an Instagram-like sharing platform where kids can share what they're making, and that's graffiti, which is expressing what's going on for them, or they're just having fun. And they put words and captions to these, and then young people can just like in Instagram, can see what is being posted by other young people. They can comment and they can say things like, hey, been there, done that, or hang in there, or I'm there for you, or, cool, or you inspire me, and all positive things that we select, that we have, that kids can select from our pre-selected comments, all of which are positive, but the young person on the other side could feel heard and understood when somebody else says, hey, wait, I've had that feeling. So that's the in-game community. And we are building out and expanding every day our external community, because we know that these young people have very powerful stories about what they've been through that can be so beneficial for other young people that maybe they didn't go through the exact same situation, but they've had that exact same feeling. And so we get young people. We write for young people in our blog, but also the young people blog for each other. So a young adult might have some really valuable insights to share with the teen. Teens themselves are so open and honest, and we help support the young people in the process of writing for other teens and capturing those stories. And it's very empowering both for the young people that write as well as the young people that come along and read this material. And because of our blog, we have a whole social media calendar that posts on a regular basis on all social media channels that our young people are coming to, little tiny bits of information that they can use in their real life in a very fun, very stylized, graffiti-like way. We get this information, young people, and make it digestible and interesting and fun, which I think is the novel thing that we're doing, is we're bringing stuff up right to the kids. They're in control of it, and it's fun.
One last piece of information you'd like parents to understand about Shadow's Edge.
It's free. So I think that would be one thing. You just download it like any game on the App Store or Google Play. And it's free, and there's no reason not to give it a whirl. It's a serious game. It's not a game that is just about shooting or controlling and beating up your subject. It's about building up, and it's about, yet it's still fun. I'd really like to emphasize that young people really do like it. And they're in charge. If they don't want to write, a whole essay in response to a journal question, they can write 1 or 2 sentences and come back to it. So it's so please visit our website at www.shadowsedge.com, and there's plenty of information. That's for the young people themselves. That's something you can show your teens. And then for the adults, if you want to learn more about the psychology behind the game and why we did the game, go to www.diggingdeep.org. That's your site. That's the parents and healthcare professionals, the caregivers site. And I really hope you enjoy playing, and have your young people show you some of the images that they're making, some of the graffiti, because it can start conversations that haven't been started before. And you might be surprised and learn something about the kids. And I hope you do.
Sheri Sobrato, thanks so much for creating Shadow's Edge and for being here with us.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Silverman, one of the founders and owners of Your Teen Media, and I want to thank our sponsor, Shadow's Edge. They offer a free self-help mobile game designed for teens and young adults to tap into their healing power of self-expression, because Shadow's Edge firmly believes that everyone is dealing with something. Download for free at Google Play or the App Store.